Breaking news sources tell CNN that the Trump administration is considering whether to make an audio recording and transcripts of Ghislaine Maxwell's interview with the Justice Department public. CNN's Elena Treen is back with us from the White House. What can you tell us, Elena?
Yeah, that's right. Well, first I would point out, Pamela, that it wasn't previously known that they actually had made an audio recording of the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, which we know occurred over the period of 2 days a couple weeks ago, last month. And essentially, from what we're hearing from both sources within the Justice Department and here at the White House, 3 senior administration officials told us that what's currently being discussed is whether or not they want to make the audio and the transcripts of that meeting public. Now, we know that they are going through and digitizing some of the audio. We were told by one official that the interviews were more than 10 hours, and also going through transcribing it and, of course, redacting parts of it where maybe victims' names who have not been previously made public, trying to redact those if they do ultimately release this information. Now, I think a big question, of course, is we all knew that Blanche went to Florida to have a sit down with Maxwell, one of Epstein's associates who is currently serving a 20-year term for some sex crimes that she was engaged in along with Epstein. And the question was, are you even going to share any of that information? Now we're learning that that is, of course, a big topic of conversation between people here at the White House and the Justice Department. Some of the people we spoke with said that they want to release this information sooner rather than later. They believe that the Trump administration needs to be more in control of the optics of all of this. Others said, they believe that the Epstein story has largely died down right now, and they would prefer not to resurface that at this moment. But all to say, it's a big topic of conversation. We could see some of this information come to light shortly. I would also note that we did hear from White House Communications Director Stephen Chung, who essentially said that he believed that this is nothing more than CNN trying to desperately to create news out of old news. He was pointing to a Newsmax interview the president did last week where he essentially said that he would like to release everything, but that we don't want people to get hurt that shouldn't be hurt. He also argued that he hadn't, at this point, this interview was done Friday, that the president argued he hadn't spoken directly with Blanche about this. So all to say, this is new information that we, of course, had not known before. The fact that there is an audio recording of this and that perhaps the White House is going to release this transcript of everyone kind of staying by to see what ultimately they will do, Pamela.
All right, Elena, thanks so much.
Joining us now, CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig. Ellie's a former federal and state prosecutor. What's your reaction, Elie, to the Justice Department considering releasing of Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's interview that went on for hours and hours with Maxwell?
Well, Wolf, it's significant, first of all, to know that an electronic recording actually exists. That's actually in compliance with DOJ policy that's been in place the last decade or so that says when you are interviewing a federally incarcerated defendant, you are supposed to electronically record it. And so that means if this comes out, we will have a verbatim record of what was said. We won't have to rely on someone's notes or testimony, which can be fallible at times. The other thing that's really important to note is the decision whether to release this is entirely the Justice Department's. It sits in Pam Bondi's hands. This is not a grand jury testimony, so they don't need to go to a judge. So the decision here whether to put this out is 100% up to Pam Bondi.
How common is it, Elie, for the U.S. Justice Department to publicly release this type of recording?
It's extremely uncommon, almost unheard of, Wolf. If we're talking about prosecutors going into a prison to speak with somebody who's a defendant, who's a potential witness, potential cooperating witness, you would never publicize and put out and make and disclose publicly the interview that you had with that person. That would be an investigative file. That would be something you would keep in-house. You would never put it out. But of course, a lot of what we've seen here is happening outside of the normal track.
Well, CNN is learning this morning that the Justice Department has an audio recording and transcript of the interview it conducted with Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, and the administration has been considering releasing that publicly. What do you think about that? Would you support it?
I would support it. I mean, it was a very unusual interview to begin with. It's very unusual that she's been moved to the prison that she is in. people. We need transparency right now. Just the lack of transparency, the what appears to be a desire by the White House to hide what is there. Let's just see what it is. I mean, this man was disgusting. He is guilty of horrific crimes. We are forgetting that there are victims that are still recovering, more than 1,000 of them. We need to know what the facts are, and then we need to move on, because quite frankly, not the Democrats, it's the Republicans in the Congress that are keeping business that needs to get done for the people of this country by blocking rules to consider anything.
Well, there are two victims, at least two, who actually wrote the court. And their identities are anonymous right now, but they're concerned that they could be exposed with the release of grand jury testimony, right? They say that this is political warfare and that people are being insensitive to these victims. How can Congress simultaneously push for transparency while also protecting the victims here?
I think the victims have a right to have their names not made public. I think that there have been, we know that there's an ability to hide their names, yet talk about what the facts and some of it was. I have, unfortunately, I'm glad that the person felt that they could come forward and talk to me. They're scared to death. They don't want their name to become public or become part of a hate tunnel. You know, people don't understand what happens to people when their name becomes public. People that don't know them, they have no facts, just go after them in all kinds of horrific, brutal, bullying, frightening, threatening ways. They've already been victims. They want to move on with their life, and they're scared to death about what is going to happen if their names become public.
So tell us a little bit more about that conversation you had. And, you know, you said they want to move on with their life, and yet, you know, the Democrats and Republicans are calling for more transparency, which will only keep this out there in the headlines.
I think that the calling for transparency is there a list? Is there a list of, here's what happened. Okay, it wasn't Democrats who called for this. As part of his campaign, he said he would make the Jeffrey Epstein list public. The Attorney General stood in front of the White House and said, I have the list on my desk. We will make this public. They said to their mega base, we're going to be transparent. We're going to tell everybody what happened. But, when you release a list, it's of the abusers. It isn't of the victims. In this country, we have tried very hard to protect the victims. I'm somebody who works in domestic violence abuse every single day, trying to help people. They should not ever have their names. They're sexual assault. I've helped some who've been victims of they're survivors. They don't want to be called victims. Their names should not be made public. It's hard enough for people that just are like that. When you take a case like the Jeffrey Epstein case, which is on the minds of millions of people across this country, there are people that are not kind. There are people that are mean and brutal. There are people from other countries that are trying to stir up more trouble in our country. And those survivors become victims again by the sheer hatred and brutality that people put towards them. Some of us have empathy and compassion, but that's not what they feel. They feel the hate that comes at them. And we need to understand that's happening too much in our country, period, on social media.